So the scope is standardization in the field of sustainable finance to integrate sustainability considerations, including environmental, social, and governance practices in the financing of economic activities. And you will immediately realize this is a very wide scope, and it is a scope which includes a lot of activities that are already ongoing, not least within ISO itself. So for the one ISO approach, that is to say there is only ever one international standard, and whatever committee or committees have been involved is irrelevant to the users, it is important that we liaise with other committees, and some of the most important are listed there. Next slide, please. So what is meant by sustainable finance? I've given you a definition, but in a way it probably hasn't helped you too much. It's probably helpful to just adapt the original Brundtland definition of sustainable development to describe financial activity that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. In other words, to not erode the capitals, if you like, associated with the global situation of the moment. Taking this diagram below from the United Nations Environment Programme, it therefore includes all of the areas of green finance and environmental finance. And Dr. Ma gave a lot of examples from that because that is the area which is by far the most developed in terms of sustainable finance. But that alone does not address the social, economic and governance considerations that true sustainable finance has to involve. And so one of the most important roles we have is extending over that breadth and building on the great work that's already been done in terms of more specific climate or environmental or green finance. Next slide, please. I think it's inevitable from what I've said that there is a wide range of interested parties in this, and I have listed them here, and you probably think it's a very extensive organization. My point really is that we must make sure that we do reach out to all those who are part of the value chain associated with the financing of activities. And this is a very big part of the global economy. But if we don't engage with all of the experts involved in these areas, it is unlikely we can produce standards and technical reports which will be of real utility, because they will only be meaningful to a component of that system. And as already we've discussed, if we are to be able to achieve our overall goals, which is to increase access to capital and to reduce the cost of capital in all of the financial activities that take place, the more consistency between all of those stakeholders and the more common understanding between those stakeholders and the more use of the same standards and systems and methodologies, then the more likely we are to have the impact we wish to make on the cost of capital and on the flow of capital. Next slide, please. To summarize our philosophy of approach, I would say that the first thing is that it is expert-led, it's practitioner-led from real experience on the ground for all of the components of the financial system. We use the ISO proven international consensus building process, and that ensures we meet not just the market interests, but the wider interests of society. Our guiding principles will be the UN Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, which incorporate all elements of society and all elements of impact. Our early work has been focused on essential building blocks. One of them is a framework standard, and you'll hear more from Hayden Morgan shortly about that. And another is a guide on a common language for sustainable finance, and Bolu Wang will explain where we have got to there. We have a wide-ranging research work, or we have carried out wide-ranging research work on this complicated landscape I have referred to. And France Connect will describe how we've used that to help us identify where we believe our work will be most useful. And we will be developing, I am sure, a suite of future standards soon. And of course, we're looking for more of you to help us do that and to input your views into where the priorities lie. Our goal is to be relevant, to harmonize, and to support those who already have developed useful and worthwhile standards and guides to make these more internationally applicable. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, our current focus is to build strong links with relevant international organisations, including those that we describe as external liaisons, who are international bodies, and reach out to new countries. And today is part, I hope, of having a conversation with you to achieve that. We want to provide technical and profile support to existing work, and that includes work within the ISO family, such as in 1430, and you'll hear more from Peng Chong about 14100, but also with other organisations to build a coherent picture across financial practices for the areas Dr. Mars referred to already: the impact assessment, the transparency and disclosure, the assurance and verification, and the management and governance, sometimes called the stewardship of the process.